Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when comfort becomes a cage. There becomes a moment when staying asleep in ignorance is more dangerous than waking up to the truth. That is the moment we must risk everything for awareness. In the pursuit of personal development, the concept of comfort often disguises itself as a friend, offering temporary peace and predictability. But beneath that surface lies a silent enemy to growth. When we dwell too long in comfort zones, we begin to stagnate mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Familiar routines become walls that keep us from exploring unknown potentials. While comfort may feel safe, it also robs us of the challenges that shape our character. Growth demands that we face discomfort, uncertainty, and even failure. These moments, although unpleasant, serve as the furnace where resilience is forged and self-awareness is born. Every individual has aspirations tucked away in their heart, visions of a life that is more aligned with their true self. But achieving that vision requires a leap, one that often means risking the very comfort that has kept them grounded. The fear of losing control, facing criticism, or dealing with rejection keeps many trapped in mediocrity. People continue in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and beliefs that no longer serve them, all because they fear stepping into discomfort. Yet, it is precisely this discomfort that becomes the bridge between who they are and who they are meant to become. The ironic lies in the fact that we are biologically and psychologically wired to avoid pain, but it is pain that introduces us to higher levels of awareness. Growth challenges you, it pulls you apart and forces you to rebuild stronger, more conscious, and more capable than before. It demands that you leave behind your safety nets and expose yourself to the raw, unpredictable process of transformation. It creates fear. It puts us on the yard of unhealed growth and forces you. Moreover, society often reinforces the illusion that comfort equals success. We're told that the goal is a life of ease, stable income, minimal conflict, and constant gratification. But those who have truly evolved, those who have changed the world or reshaped their own lives, know the truth. Real progress begins at the edge of comfort. When you challenge your limitations and question your patterns, you begin to awaken a deeper level of awareness. And it is in that space of uncertainty and discomfort that you discover your highest potential. Not in the cozy rooms of safety, but on the battlefield of growth. Awareness is often romanticized as a noble pursuit, something we should all strive for. But what is rarely discussed is the cost that comes with it. To become truly aware means to shatter illusions, to strip away layers of denial, and to stand face to face with realities you once ignored. This process is not easy. It requires mental strength and emotional resilience because the truth, more often than not, is uncomfortable. Whether it's awareness of one's own flaws, the injustice in society, or the fragility of relationships, every level of awakening brings with it a price. And the first part of that cost is the internal conflict between the person you were and the person you are becoming. The more you become aware, the more alienated you might feel from the world around you. This happens because you begin to notice things others either can't see or refuse to acknowledge. Conversations that once felt normal might now seem shallow. Environments that once brought comfort might now feel toxic. The people around you may question your change, challenge your perspective, or even distance themselves from you. And while that isolation can be painful, it's often an inevitable byproduct of awareness. You are no longer willing to pretend, to participate in ignorance, or to dilute your truth to keep others comfortable. Another cost of awareness is the burden of responsibility. Once you see the truth, you can no longer act like. You feel compelled to act, speak out, or live differently. But standing in truth often means standing alone. You may risk your social standing, your job, your peace of mind, or your reputation. Choosing to speak out against injustice, hypocrisy, or lies can paint you as a troublemaker instead of a truth teller. And yet, this is the path that awareness demands. It does not let you go back to sleep. It calls you to live differently, knowing full well that the path forward may be far lonelier than the path behind. Furthermore, awareness may even cost you your previous identity. The person you were before the awakening begins to dissolve as you evolve into someone more conscious and aligned. That transition can be jarring. Letting go of old habits, beliefs, and ways of thinking feels like a form of death. But it's not just a personal shift. It's also how the world begins to see you differently, and often not in a favorable light. People may not understand your transformation and they may resist it. But no matter how high the cost, awareness is always a trade worth making. For in losing what's false, you begin to reclaim what's real. Truth, by its very nature, is disruptive. It does not bend to fit narratives, nor does it try to please the masses. It simply is raw, unfiltered, and sometimes brutally honest. When people speak of seeking the truth, they often imagine a moment of clarity or enlightenment. But the reality is far less romantic. The truth can be painful, shaking the foundation of everything you've built your life upon. It forces you to question your values, your relationships, your upbringing, and even your identity. Many people don't fear the truth because it's unknown. They fear it because it challenges what they already believe. When you finally begin to confront the truth, it reveals the hidden cracks in systems, people, and even in yourself. It exposes hypocrisy in the institutions we once trusted and shines a light on behaviors we once justified. Suddenly, things that seemed acceptable now feel wrong. That realization isn't liberating at first, it's often terrifying. The truth doesn't just liberate, it strips away the comfort of ignorance. And in that moment of reckoning, you're forced to choose. Continue living a lie for the sake of familiarity, or embrace the discomfort of transformation. Most people avoid uncomfortable truths not because they don't know them, but because they aren't ready to face the consequences of knowing. For example, realizing that a relationship is toxic means you may have to end it. Discovering that your career path doesn't align with your purpose means you might have to start over. Acknowledging that your beliefs are rooted in fear or misinformation means you must unlearn and rebuild. These are not easy choices. They involve pain, uncertainty, and change. 3 things the human mind is wired to resist. But without this confrontation, growth is impossible. We remain trapped in illusions that pacify but never fulfill. On a larger scale, societal truths are even harder to face. Corruption, inequality, discrimination, these are not abstract problems. They are deeply entrenched realities that awareness forces us to acknowledge. Yet, speaking the truth in a society that is built on denial comes with a price. People may label you as negative, rebellious, or even unpatriotic for daring to question what everyone else has accepted. But discomfort is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of awakening. It means you're beginning to see clearly in a world that prefers the haze of comfort. The more truth you uncover, the more isolated you might feel. But that isolation is the space where real transformation begins. From the moment we are born, society begins shaping our perception of reality, not with the intention of enlightening us, but with the goal of controlling us. Schools often teach obedience over curiosity, and culture rewards conformity over critical thinking. Mass media saturates our consciousness with narratives that maintain the status quo, encouraging us to consume rather than question. This carefully constructed system discourages self-serviceness because awareness threatens the illusion. When people begin to see through the lies, they become unpredictable. They begin asking questions, challenging authority, and seeking purpose beyond profit. And that, for those in power, is dangerous. Society operates like a machine, and in that machine, awareness is a malfunction. The lesser aware you are, the easier you are to manage. Most people are conditioned to chase external validation, money, fame, approval, believing that these are the hallmarks of success. Meanwhile, questioning the system is painted as rebellion or worse, insanity. Those who dare to step outside of the norm are often ridiculed, silenced, or dismissed as outcasts. And so, to avoid rejection and isolation, many people choose blindness. They would rather blend into a broken world than be the one who exposes its cracks. They trade their awareness for acceptance, unaware that in doing so they surrender their authenticity. The systems in place, economic, political, educational, from truly thinking and from seeing what is right in front of us. The more entertained and overstimulated we are, the less likely we are to recognize injustice, manipulation, or even personal unhappiness. Blindness becomes a form of survival, a protective layer between us and the truth that lies beneath the surface. Even well-intentioned individuals often fall into the trap of unconscious participation. We wear the masks given to us, employee, citizen, consumer, without questioning what lies underneath. We vote based on slogans, believe in systems we've never examined, and follow rules we don't fully understand. Awareness asks us to strip away those layers and confront the uncomfortable reality that much of what we believe has been programmed into us. Society does not reward this kind of rebellion. It punishes it. But those who risk seeing clearly, even in a world that prefers blindness, begin to reclaim their autonomy. They break free from the collective sleepwalking and start living with intention, no matter how unsettling that may be. Freedom is one of the most cherished ideals spoken about in society, yet it is often misunderstood. True freedom does not simply mean the absence of physical restraint or the ability to make basic choices. It means the liberty to live in alignment with your truth, your values, and your awareness. But to arrive at such freedom, one must take enormous risks. The path to freedom is not paved with certainty or comfort. It is riddled with sacrifice, vulnerability, and fear. People who live freely are not those who were handed their autonomy. They are those who earned it by walking away from illusions and facing the consequences of their clarity. Taking risks means letting go of the very things that once made you feel secure. It means saying goodbye to a steady paycheck that undermines your purpose, walking out of relationships that suppress your spirit, or distancing yourself from communities that demand your silence in exchange for belonging. These decisions are not easy and they don't guarantee immediate reward. In fact, the initial result of taking such risks is often discomfort, loneliness, and doubt. But this discomfort is a gateway, an initiation into a life where you are no longer shackled by expectations or trapped in systems that dictate who you should be. It is the beginning of something rare. Freedom, born from authenticity. Risk is a language that freedom understands. If you choose to speak up rather than stay silent, to act on your convictions rather than fall rebellion, act on yourself. You carve out a space for genuine that happens. Give me time. It's real. If you choose to speak, these are not the grand gestures society always applauds. Often, they are private victories, quiet rebellions, and unseen battles that reshape your entire life. Ironically, the freedom that arises from risk is not reckless or chaotic. It is grounded and intentional. It doesn't mean doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Rather, it means having the power to say yes to what aligns with your soul and no to what poisons your peace. This form of freedom is not gifted, it is earned. Through courage and self-trust, those who risk for truth do not live easier lives. They live freer ones. They understand that risk is not the opposite of security. It is the very door through which all meaningful change enters. Through risk, they release control, embrace growth, and reclaim the authorship of their own story. Every great revolution in history, whether political, cultural, social, or personal, has its roots not in violence or power, but in awareness. Before any protest erupted, before any speech echoed through the streets, before any system was challenged, someone, somewhere, became aware of a deep injustice, a profound truth, or a necessary change. It stirred the soul of an individual who chose to see what others ignored and feel what others numbed. And in that moment of clarity, a revolution was born. Not necessarily in the public sphere first, but within the consciousness of the awakened, the most transformative leaders the world has ever known. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Malala Yousafzai, and countless others did not begin with followers or fame. They began with awareness. They noticed what others had normalized, and they refused to accept it. Their vision came from an inner recognition that things could no longer stay the same. What separated them from the rest was not just bravery, but the willingness to act on their awareness. They understood that being aware came with responsibility, and that responsibility often required them to risk everything: comfort, relationships, reputation, and even their lives. Awareness is a seed. But it often overlooks the painful awakening that came before. The problem is associate identity. It is a seated awareness that gives it pencil. It forgets the sleepless nights of internal questioning, the disillusionment with a broken system, and the lonely walk of those who chose consciousness over convenience. Revolution is not just about battling what's outside. It's about transforming what's inside first. And that inner revolution is where the true struggle begins. What makes awareness so potent is that it multiplies. One awakened mind influences another and another, until what was once a silent realization becomes a collective movement. That's how revolutions gain momentum, not through force, but through the expanding ripple of consciousness. Once people begin to see with clarity, they can no longer be manipulated, pacified, or silenced in the same way. Awareness breaks the chains that keep people mentally subdued, and while systems of oppression may try to suppress it, history has shown that once the spark of awareness is lit, it spreads faster than fear and more powerfully than any weapon. There is something fundamentally life-altering about becoming truly aware. Once your mind has expanded to see beyond illusions, it can never fully return to its previous state. Awareness is a permanent transformation, not a temporary realization or passing idea. It changes how you perceive yourself, how you relate to others, and how you navigate the world. You begin to see beneath the surface of conversations, media, relationships, institutions, and even your own behaviors. What once felt normal may now seem shallow or manipulative. You no longer view life through the filter lens society handed you. Instead, you start observing it from a raw and unfiltered perspective that cannot be unseen. This irreversible shift can be both empowering and isolating. You may find it harder to engage in the same social settings or accept the same narratives others still cling to. The jokes don't sound the same. The small talk feels emptier. The distractions that once entertained you no longer satisfy. You become aware not only of external systems of control and conditioning, but also of your own internal patterns. How fear drives decisions, how ego distorts truth, how wounds shape your reality. This level of self-honesty is unsettling, but it's also where healing begins. You realize that pretending to be asleep again would be a betrayal of your soul, even if it would make life easier. Awareness brings with it a weight that is often difficult to carry. It becomes a moral compass that constantly challenges your choices and demands alignment with truth. While ignorance offers the luxury of indifference, awareness demands action, no matter how small or inconvenient. It whispers in the quiet moments. Once awakened, you may wish at times to turn it off, to rewind to a simpler, more oblivious version of yourself. But the shift is permanent. You can no longer lie to yourself convincingly, nor can you accept lies from others without discomfort, gnawing at your conscience. Ironically, the irreversible nature of awareness is also what makes it the most powerful tool for transformation. Because once you awaken, your very existence begins to influence others. Your words carry deeper intention. Your presence disrupts the norm, and your refusal to conform sparks discomfort in those still asleep. You become a mirror, often unintentionally, showing people what they are not yet ready to face. This can be both a gift and a burden, but it is the nature of awareness. It spreads. And while it may isolate you at first, it also connects you to a deeper truth and a greater purpose. You are no longer just surviving, you are consciously living. And that shift is something no force in the world can reverse. So when the world urges you to stay comfortable, to remain blind, and to keep quiet, remember that your awareness is not a weakness. It is your greatest power. It will challenge you, cost you, and even isolate you, but it will also liberate you. The journey of becoming truly aware is not for the faint of heart. It's for the brave, the restless, and the seekers of truth. And though the path is lonely at times, it is also sacred, because once your eyes are open, you begin to see not just the world, but yourself, with clarity and purpose. And that clarity becomes the compass that guides every step, every risk, and every revolution. Let the world sleep if it must, but you stay awake.